Okay, here in this tutorial I just want to share some quick tips for working with Photoshop, particularly with sketching with Photoshop. And one of the things that I'm doing a lot is actually sketching in Photoshop and then taking those images or those layers into an application like After Effects or Final Cut Pro. So the first step is to create a new file. So I'm just going to go to File, New here. Now, at the moment I have my size set up to a kind of lower quality HD setting here, but what I would encourage you to do if you're drawing or illustrating in Photoshop before you take it to your video is actually to create your canvas size at the largest size possible. So if you're planning to work at 1280 by 720, then I would set my canvas size to 1920 by 1080, which is the largest size of HD. And the reason for that is that if you want to zoom in to your footage, then that gives you the opportunity to do that, to actually move in a little closer. If you're working with After Effects where you're going to be zooming in a lot to your illustrations or animations, then you want to move to a larger size than this. So we'll just click OK to this for the moment. So now we have our project file up. We'll just go to File and Save As, and we're going to save this on the desktop as a Photoshop document. Okay, now the next thing we want to consider is how we name our files. So I'm going to run through a very quick kind of technique for working with black and white illustrations. So I'm going to put a background color in at the bottom of my image here. So I'm going to select a green here from my swatches. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the shortcut Shift and F5, which will give me the fill. Okay, and I'm going to fill it with the foreground color. Okay. So the next step for me is to set up two more layers above this. So one will be the black outline and the other will be a white fill that I'll use. So I'm working with just a kind of black and white sketch here, and we're going to create two more layers. One will be the white fill and the other will be the black line. Now the nice thing about having those separately is that if you want to have something draw onto the screen, you can have them drawn at different times, and actually with a lot of projects I end up with different layers for different elements of that project. Okay, so the first step that I'll do is just work with the white fill. So I'm going to jump back to my black and white here. Now I can use the little hooked arrow on the bottom left here to flip between my black and my white, or I can use the X on the keyboard to do that. Okay, now when I'm working with brushes I change the size quite a lot. So I have my brush tool selected here. Okay, the shortcut for the brush tool is B, and the shortcut for increasing and decreasing the size of your brush is the square brackets. Okay, so you can see that I'm increasing and decreasing the size. Okay, now I have another tutorial that explains how to make this brush that I'm working with, but for the moment that's not so important. We're just really concentrating on the shortcuts and kind of getting the flow right for the brushes. I'm going to take a couple of steps backwards here. So Option, Command and Z is the shortcut for that. Okay, and we're just going to sketch in, or begin to sketch in, a simple house here. Okay, and I'm not too worried about the roughness of it, because we'll move in and we'll start to use the eraser tool and sharpen up the edges. Okay, you can see this brush gives you a nice kind of texture to it. Okay, so I'm using this a lot for kind of quick architectural visualizations that I'm then animating in After Effects, either in situ, i.e. on a Google Map overview, or overlaying it over the top of a video. And I'm going to do some tutorials for that later, but I just want to focus on the drawing today. So, so we're working on the white fill initially, and then we'll jump to the black line. Okay, now with the black line we can reselect the brush tool, so tap B to select the brush tool, and obviously we'll drop our brush tool size down to a nice small size. Okay, and now when we're working with our black line, one tool that I'm using a lot when I'm kind of sketching out, I use the R shortcut key quite a lot to rotate my canvas, and you can see it's a really nice way of angling your canvas so that you can draw the lines really easily. Okay, let's just press X to jump to the black. Okay, so you can see I can start to rotate around and drop in my lines really easily, and obviously we can tidy these up. So I'm just letting the line flow beyond where it needs to be, okay, as we sketch out this simple shape. Okay, so once we've got this kind of sketched in, we can then refine it a little bit. So I'll be sketching quite a lot and then jumping between the rotate tool, which is R, the shortcut is R, the brush tool for sketching out my lines, and then also the eraser tool. So E is the shortcut for the eraser to then tidy up my sketches. Okay, and actually if you're just starting out with Photoshop, then these are really kind of nice keyboard shortcuts to get to grips with as you set out to work. Okay, also using Command and plus and minus quite a lot to zoom in and out of my sketches. Okay, as well as, you can see this here, I think I might mention this, the left and right square brackets here to increase and decrease the size of the eraser as I kind of move through and tidy up some of my lines. Okay, so I'm just going to flip back to the white fill just to sharpen up some of these edges. So I jump down to the white fill layer, and now you can see we can get in nice and close and tidy this up. I've got a wonky looking house, we'll tidy this up a little bit. And you can see the nice thing about working here is that we can kind of keep correcting with the black line and the white fill, and then I'll sometimes be dropping in some grey layers to add some shadow, and I like to keep all my layers separate. As I said, if I'm then moving on later to actually animate this, once the layers get into After Effects or into Final Cut Pro, that does make it a lot easier to work with those different layers. Okay, and the last thing I did there was just shift and click to select all my layers and use Command and T, do a free transform, so then rotate my sketch background. So that's a quick run through of working with layers. You can see here I've got my different layers here in Photoshop, and that will give me a kind of nice set of layers to work with when I actually bring that into my other applications. Okay, I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial.